Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star sports podcast. It's Thursday, June 22nd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're talking Missouri Tigers today, and who better to weigh in on Mizzou than Kwiecinski and Matt Stahl of the Columbia Daily Tribune. They cover Missouri on a daily basis, and we cover a lot of ground on today's show, starting with who's going to play quarterback for the Tigers. Brady Cook was last season's starter, and he's back, but is he the starter for 2023? Also, we weigh the merits of the 2024 SEC scheduling formula. That's when Oklahoma and Texas join the league, and the SEC will do away with divisions that year. After a break, we switch to basketball. The Tigers' Kobe Brown is expected to be selected in tonight's NBA draft. What kind of pro will he make? Also, how is Missouri shaping up for Dennis Gates' second season? All that and more with Kwiecinski and Matt Stahl, so let's get started. Guys, it's great to see you, and let's talk some Missouri sports and start with football. We've got a lot of topics to cover, but and the NBA draft is tonight, but let's start with football. And who's starting at quarterback? Chris, let's start with you. Tell me who Missouri's going to start at quarterback, and why is there a competition for this position?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, to start off, if you want to go right into it, I think Sam Horn is going to be the starter. I think at this point we can't look over the fact that he's supposed to be the guy. He came in with the billing, the 4-star prospect, the guy that was paired with Luther Burden in that 2021 class. I mean, when we think about the potential for the future of this team, it was always based on the 21 class. And if this program is going to get to the next level, you have to start reaping the benefits. And I don't think there's any way that he's not part of the future going forward and the immediate future going ahead. And it's part of this competition just because, last year we saw a lot of Brady Cook. We saw a lot of the good things that he did. We saw the athleticism that he brought to the team. But injuries aside, the passing game still struggled to be consistent under him. And there were a lot of decision-making issues. And that's the kind of thing where it comes down to, well, if all bets are off, everything's on the table this year, then the quarterback has to be on the table this year too.
So you got him over Brady and Jake Garcia, the Miami transfer. Listen, Brady, not the gaudiest of numbers, but I think his escapability was probably an undervalued aspect of his game. But this is not an offense that has produced many touchdown passes, no matter who the quarterback has been. Matt, are you on board with Sam Horn as the starter?
Honestly, Eli Drinkwitz's smoke screening has worked on me enough to the point where, I wouldn't put money on any of these guys at this point. He said, when he was last in St. Louis during the speaking tour, he said, Brady's the incumbent. Everybody's going to have to beat out Brady. And it really wouldn't shock me to see Brady Cook back under center, behind center again, just because I would be very interested to see what Brady Cook can do with an offensive line that could keep him upright for more than 1 second. And yeah, you mentioned that escapability, that was so huge for him last year. But, I just think if some of this offensive line works out a little better than it did, some guys come along, some of the improvements work, I think we'll get a more just complete picture of what Brady Cook can actually do. Whether or not that's going to be enough to beat out, what Sam Horn could do, what Jake Garcia could do, we'll see. But I don't know that we've really seen the full picture of what Brady Cook could be.
Remind me, Sam, of course, is the dual sport athlete, the baseball prospect, but did he not play at all this year? Baseball?
Baseball. He started the season, played a few games. Hurt his elbow, came out of one of the baseball games pointing at his elbow, which of course terrified everybody. It turned out to be some sort of arm strain. They just shut him down for baseball season, which is probably the right call since he's on a football scholarship. But yeah, through spring ball and everything, it happened right before spring ball. So he was really disadvantaged, I think, going through that. So I think we'll maybe get more of a look at him as fall camp starts.
So, Chris, what do they have in Jake Garcia? An experienced backup for this year?
I think they have a guy that when you think about last year, uh, the one thing that I don't think that the team really had was that Power Five player that you can look at and say, hey, well, if Brady's injured or if Brady needs to come out, we have a guy. And they had Jack Abraham. Don't get me wrong, like he was a very smart player. I know of his career just following him from my past times covering high school sports in Oxford, Mississippi, because you know the names that come through. And I mean, he was always a guy that they kind of pointed to, hey, like that's a really good player. But as we saw it when he came in against Kansas State, I mean, I think he threw 2 passes and both of them were intercepted. And granted, like nothing was good that day for Mizzou. We all know that. But I think when it comes down to it, there wasn't a guy that could come out if Brady needed to leave a game for some reason, if be it performance or injury based, that you could look at a guy and say, okay, go in there. You know how to handle this because you've had experience before. I think Jake brings that. I think Jake brings that. He also brings a big arm. He also brings the ability to stretch the field. And we saw the passing game struggle in the long bomb game for most of the beginning of the season. It started to come together when Dominic Lovett emerged too. But I think with Jake, you have that right off the bat. I mean, you have the ability and the confidence to try and stretch the field and try to be consistent at that too. And it's also, again, it's just another body at quarterback, and you really can't understate how important that is for the most important position in football.
Yeah, and look, no matter who plays, you'll have a new offensive coordinator, and then I think we're pretty confident Kirby Moore is going to be calling the plays as well this year, which will be a change in direction from Missouri. We'll have some good wide receivers to throw to, including the transfer from Oklahoma, Theo Weiss. Is that how you pronounce it? Do we know? Mm-hmm. The running backs are back, right? Cody Schrader and Nathaniel Pete. So 3 of the offensive line. Looks like the offense should be better. They just need to have that. He's got to get it right at quarterback, doesn't he? That just hasn't been right for him after succeeding I shouldn't say that it worked so well for the previous coach, but it did with Drew Lock. But then Gary Pinkel you always knew who the Gary Pinkel quarterback was going to be, right? From Brad Smith to Chase Daniel to Blaine Gabbert to James Franklin to Matty Mock and then to Drew. You always knew what you're going to get at quarterback. It just seems so odd to me that the one position from the offensive-minded head coach is, that's been so uncertain is quarterback. So, am I overstating it to say that if his job depends on him getting this right this time? Matt, what do you think?
No, I don't think you're understating it at all. But, for me, like whoever the quarterback, like he has to get the quarterback thing right. That's key. That offensive line has to be fixed somehow, or like nobody's going to have a chance. I mean, you saw them last year, like there were some games they should have won like they should have beat Florida. They should have beat Auburn. Just a few other games where, I mean, the quarterback didn't look great, but I mean, he couldn't stand up. Like that Auburn game, there was 8 straight punts between the two teams. And it's just it's just not going to work if you don't get that little thing shored up. And so to me, yes, no, I mean, I don't think you're understating it at all, but like that, the O-line is the group I'd say, like, I don't know if it needs to be new faces or it's just guys need to grow up a little bit, learn to gel, but that's going to be sort of what determines it for Eli Drinkwitz here.
Listen, you brought up the Auburn game. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since it's out there now, I've never seen a team lose the way Missouri lost that game. And not just the chip shot field goal missed by one of the nation's best kickers that would have walked it off in regulation, but the fumble through the end zone that would have walked it off in overtime. I don't know what the odds are of both of those things happening, but you can, to me, add that to the list of all the misfortunes for Missouri historically in all sports. I'd never seen anything quite like that.
Yeah, no, I had my story like written, ready to go. And then I see the ball hit the ground in the end zone. And like at Auburn, you have to run all the way like lengthwise across the field and like down to get to the press conference. So I just closed my computer and was like, Chris, you gotta get this one up.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, well, it's a funny story. I'm not getting it up right away. So we have to figure out because they had the instant replay, and we had to figure out what was going on. I remember watching in my living room, just being like, "Well, what's the call?"
Yeah.
But then again, you want to bring up just the misfortunes. I mean, the going from that game plus a handful of weeks later, you have Georgia, where I mean, you go all the way to the 1 yard line on a huge run by Cody Schrader, only to move back 5 yards on a false start penalty, and then you kick a field goal instead of a touchdown. Those 3 points or the 4 point swing there would have tied the game in the fourth quarter when you're trying to take a lead instead of try to ice the game against the number one overall team in the nation. Like, it's just the difference between those two things. And I mean, it's difficult because you want to say those are the reasons that this team could take a next step this year. And I think they've taken the opportunity and the moves to fix that. I mean, when you look at center, you assume Cameron Johnson is going to come in and the transfer from Houston, a very highly rated guy in the transfer portal. There's also Armand Membo, who's taking over at right guard, Marcellus Johnson too at right tackle, and then you've got Javon Foster at left tackle and that stuff too. And they've got experienced players, but that's what Matt was saying. I mean, they've added these places, they've added pieces in different places. It just has to come together, or else, hey, like, you never know what's going to happen in December if it's the same 6-6, 6-7 season.
Yeah, look, it has to be better than that this year. It just does. I think even though Drinkwitz got the contract extension last year, good for him to get that, but you got to perform under 500 in SEC. I think 11 and 15 career-wise SEC games, and just not a winning record in his first three seasons at Mizzou. I don't know if the schedule gets easier or more difficult in 2024 when the Tigers play the new SEC schedule that includes Oklahoma. It's funny, all the reporting that I saw, Chris, including your story. Yes, it is absolutely true that Missouri and Oklahoma have a long-standing relationship, but I would never have called it a rivalry. I mean, I covered a lot of Missouri-Oklahoma football and basketball games when they were both in the Big 8 and the Big 12, and I can think of some interesting moments. But hey, look, anything to bring a more familiar opponent to Mizzou, and I'm glad the Kansas State football series is continuing this year. They start one with Kansas. After the K-State series, they have the basketball series with the Jayhawks. So great that that's happening. Okay, how about it, Chris? In 2024, when the world changes for the SEC and the Big 12, how does it impact Missouri's football schedule and their fortunes?
Yeah, like I was writing in one of my just like observation takeaway stories is it's really interesting because the original knee-jerk reaction from especially like the Mizzou community was very much like, that's not that bad. That's really not bad considering what exists in the SEC now. I mean, they go to Alabama, but they also get South Carolina, Vanderbilt. They get teams that they're familiar with. They also add Oklahoma, and like I was kind of saying, you really don't know what everything's going to look like in 2024 right now, just because Oklahoma's coming off kind of a iffy year into the first year under Brent Venables. I mean, you have a Auburn team that'll be playing in year 2 of Hugh Freeze, and you really don't know what some of these teams are going to look like, if they're going to be trying to take the next step or kind of move up or continue success from 2023. And there's a chance they could be playing teams that are really just fighting for success in 24. And a lot of that depends obviously on how Mizzou does this year, because obviously, like you just said, Blair, you can't go 6-6 and expect that to continue, especially in an SEC where you have to be competitive in a changing world. But I think it's one of those schedules that's manageable. If they can find that success with that 21 class, kind of continue it with 22 and 23, the transfer portal, that kind of way, there's an avenue for success in that year too, especially with Oklahoma coming to Columbia. I mean, that's exciting. That's exciting for the fan base. It's going to be one of those games where it's not hard to sell a ticket to that game just because they like the familiarity too. But a lot of that kind of just depends on, can you continue success, and can you find that success first?
Yeah, look, and the last time OU was at Missouri, I believe that was the big game day experience, right? It was 2010, and an upset. I don't think Oklahoma was number one. They may have been number three, something like that. I think that was right.
Yeah, it was like 36-27. I think.
And Missouri ran back the opening kickoff, so it was just a really cool night to be in Columbia. Great all day, really. It was a night game, and the game day was there all day, so a lot of fun. Matt, the big story, of course, with the SEC and football scheduling was 8 games or 9, and they decided to stay at 8 games, at least for 2024. We don't know what's going to happen in 2025. I think eventually they'll go to 9 games. They'll be the last conference to do that. But I just think the television partners are going to want better inventory, and better inventory are SEC games, and not SEC against Group of 5 or Division I, FCS program. So what do you think? Are they going to go to 9 eventually?
I think so. I hope so. Honestly, I mean, putting television money aside, because I think that was sort of the reason for going to 8 this year, where ESPN wasn't gonna pay them any more money for a 9th conference game. So why do it? I just you're a 16-team conference. You have to go to 9 games just to play all the games that people care about. I think you can sort of look at just sort of interest in Mizzou football since joining the SEC as a warning sign of what happens when you don't play the rivalries your fans care about. There's not that many games. There's more now with Oklahoma coming, and that Arkansas game finally turning into some good games. But Mizzou fans would care more if they were playing Kansas State every year, Kansas every year, those games, those really more historic rivalries. So the more the SEC can preserve all of those, I think going to be the better. So I think they're really going to have no choice but to go to 9. I guess my big question on that is what happens. They're also going to the 12-team playoff that same year. And if an 8-team or if an 8-game conference schedule dumps 5 SEC teams in that playoff, do they just get happy or all right, yeah, this is fine, even though they've held scheduling captive for years, trying to keep the 3rd Saturday in October, Tennessee Alabama game going, a game that has historically not been very good. It's been really streaky, and they've just hung everybody up for years on that. And now the moment you have more teams in the conference, you're not going to play it anymore. Come on.
Yeah, look, I agree. I do think you need to preserve the long-standing relationships like Georgia, Auburn, and reintroduce fans to Texas A&M, continue Texas OU. I do think Missouri and Arkansas needs to continue. But do they lose anything by ending the annual series with Kentucky or South Carolina or some of these SEC Easts? And what do you foresee as an SEC schedule philosophy when it comes to crossovers in the future?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up, just because I've always thought that the Mizzou South Carolina rivalry was just one of those underrated ones that really started to build. It really felt like when Mizzou came in, Arkansas and Mizzou were just kind of not forced to go together, but the SEC just said, okay, here you go. There's a rivalry.
Rival. Yes, you're going to be a rival.
Yeah, they kind of manufacture, basically, have fun, figure it out. Who knows how it's going to work? But I always felt that South Carolina brought some of that rivalry energy too, just because it's Columbia, those two teams that are always kind of fighting for that spot of relevance. I feel a little bit when behind in the SEC East, Georgia, Florida. But I saw this past year too, there's always just chirping on social media, going back and forth, especially with Shane Beamer, a high energy coach that likes to bring energy to games too. And I think that's exciting for Mizzou fans, just to kind of get up for that game and have a trophy to take home. It's not something you see with a lot of games. Obviously the Battle Line rivalry has that. But Kentucky, I always figure, there's more of that, I guess the local, not local, but just the proximity to both schools kind of played a lot into it, but also just a bunch of weird games. I know the pass interference call a handful of years ago, plus last year with the punt roughing the punter call that literally we still have no idea what happened there. But
right, another toss-up game that didn't go Missouri's way.
Right, another game where Mizzou's could have played Kentucky and the refs or whatever, whatever you want to say. But I think it's a little bit of a bummer just because those games were interesting. There's something a little bit extra to those games besides just they're playing another SEC rival. It's the proximity. There's a trophy to it. I do like seeing the Arkansas game kind of not be forced, but just kind of say, okay, like time to push this to the next level as a rivalry because it really is the proximity there. But I would like to see South Carolina be in that rotation too, just because I like the energy that game brought. And hopefully that kind of changes as they kind of figure things out when they go to a 9 schedule eventually.
I'm with you on South Carolina, and believe it or not, Shane Beamer, in a lifetime ago, I covered Virginia Tech for a newspaper in Virginia, and 8-year-old Shane Beamer was on the practice field, and so I got, when I got to know Frank Beamer, his dad, the coach, and the family, there was little Shane Beamer. It's neat to see him have the success that he's having today. Okay. Guys, let's take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk a little Mizzou hoops. We'll be right back. We're back on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast, and we're talking Missouri hoops with Chris and Matt. And guys, the NBA draft is tonight. Missouri is likely, almost assuredly, I don't know, how do we characterize Kobe Brown's place in the draft? I've seen him every mock draft I've seen. He's been part of in the second round for all of it. So fingers are crossed for Kobe Brown. Does he get drafted tonight? We're pretty sure he's getting drafted, right, Matt?
Oh yeah. No, I think he'll go in the second round. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of question on that. Okay, and what kind of NBA player is he going to be? But if depending on where he ends up, it always matters, right? Look at Christian Brown for the old KU guy for Denver. Really worked out well for him. Right place, right fit. Kobe Brown, how can he help an NBA team? Well, we'll see. If he can keep up that 3-point shot he discovered this past season, that's going to be pretty deadly. And then obviously he's a guy who can go in, go get a bucket, make his own shot inside there. I guess the question on him is, he's older than a lot of these prospects coming in the draft. He's been here, been at Mizzou 4 years now. It's how he's pretty likely going to look a whole lot like his college self, right? How much more growth really is there to be if you're Kobe Brown? So I think that might be the sort of one concern on it, is you sort of what you see is what you get at this point. What do you think, Chris? Is the improvement that he was a terrific player. Heck, he was preseason all SEC, but he really did step up his game from the final year of Konzo Martin to Dennis Gates' first year. I think the offense helped him out a little bit. There's just a little more structure to the offense, and he really did thrive this year. It wasn't always all about him the way it needed to be a year ago, and I think that helped him as well. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is as soon as I kind of opened things up for not just him, but for players like Demoy Hodge, Nick Honor, players that started to kind of fit into their roles and kind of take advantage of what the defense might give them. And then you have games like Kentucky where they're just running all over the court. It's massive chaos. You don't really know what's going to happen. And here's Kobe Brown shooting a long-range three just because he can. And it goes in because that's just how his season went. He really took advantage of a lot of the different looks and a lot of the different opportunities he was able to build with that team. And he was able to play a modern style of basketball. And I think that's what's going to benefit him the most, especially in the draft. And when teams are looking at him, I know the Portland Trailblazers will take a look at him, the Nuggets, the Pacers, I believe the Lakers too. All these different teams kind of looking for a player like that can come in and play multiple positions. And when you can play those, I think that's just going to be the benefit for him, especially when it comes to the draft, but also summer league, when you're trying to find out how this guy can fit and where he can play. He can just go out and play. It doesn't have to say, well, I'm a center, so I'm just going to go rebound. He said, well, I'm a guy that can play the perimeter. I can play the post. I can bully guys around, because that's what he did in the last year of Konzo Martin, of the Konzo era. But I think it's just important to note that, hey, he needed to show a lot more to get into that NBA draft conversation, and he did. And not just that, but shot an incredible clip from 3-point percentage.
I mean, it still boggles my mind when you write about him and you say, well, how does a guy like that shoot 40% from three? Well, he did. So, and that's the kind of thing that's going to push him on and probably keep him on an NBA roster too. I don't think we'll see the last of Kobe.
Looking to become the first Missouri player since Michael Porter Jr. to be drafted. Porter,
that worked out well.
It had worked out well for him too. NBA champion. What was this? What was the piece of trivia? First NBA champion on NBA championship team from Mizzou since
1982 when Klay Johnson won with the Showtime Lakers.
Kansas City and Klay Johnson. So very good, very good. Okay. All right. Well, how about Missouri hoops in general for next season? Not an entire roster makeover. Nick Honor is going to be back, and Sean East and Noah Carter. Some familiar names and faces, but for the most part, everybody else is transferring in or fresh. Aiden Shaw, of course, is back. The Kansas City freshman last year had a nice season. In college basketball anymore, major college basketball, it's like a complete makeover, right? I mean, with transfers, it's going to be another old team, isn't it? I mean, this team is going to have a bunch of players who are, if they're not coming back from Mizzou, they're coming from some other program where they've been a starter. The most recent acquisition and maybe the most significant one, Connor Vanover, right? The 7'5" transfer played at Oral Roberts, played at Arkansas in the SEC. I think he started. Was it at Cal where he started? So, Matt, what are the Tigers getting in? Well, they're getting a huge dude in Connor Vanover. Is this a guy that can give him, 28 minutes and be a full-time, center?
I think he can if they need him to. That's sort of yet to be determined. What he gives them is a piece that they just straight up didn't have last year. And I think it really, at times, Dennis can talk all he wants about sort of working around not having those rebounders, like losing the rebound battle their only thing they lose. But they don't have to do that anymore. He can go get you those rebounds sort of underneath. Whereas, I mean, who's the tallest guy? It was, Mobor Majak, who wasn't playing all that much. A little bit Muhammad Diarra sort of came on towards the end of the season. But other than that, I mean, it was Kobe Brown's show. Yeah. And it just gives them another look. I think that, they definitely suffered at times for not having last year, especially when sometimes that shooting goes cold.
So he starts, right? He comes in, you got to pencil him depending on how Dennis wants to play, I think he's a starter. He's been a starter. I'm trying to come up with a starting lineup, Chris, for these guys. Nick Honor, I think, is your point guard. And Noah Carter is going to be at the 3-4. I think Caleb Grill, the transfer from Iowa State, you pencil him in as a starter. He's really good player. Where else should I go with this?
Yeah, so I kind of vary a little bit because I've seen a couple predictions when it comes to a starting five. I think you're spot on with Vanover at the 5 and then Nick Honor at the point guard. I mean, Nick having one of the best assist turnover ratios in college basketball last year. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Leave a guy there that knows how to direct the offense. And I think Noah Carter too, especially the way he played going in from the back end of the SEC play into the NCAA tournament, was one of those guys that was giving Mizzou I'd say 10 points, 6 rebounds a game. That's important too, especially pairing that alongside a rebounder now with Vanover. And I differ from a lot of other people when I say I don't think Caleb's going to be a starter. I think he's got a chance to earn that spot, definitely, especially with the way that he can play and shoot the 3. But I think a guy, Tamar Bates from Indiana, that transfer from the Hoosiers is going to be that shooting guard spot, take over for Demoy Hodge. And just because I understand at Indiana, he was a very athletic player coming out of high school as a top 50 recruit, but never was really utilized like that. He's got the playmaking ability of a star, but was never given the chance to just say, hey, here's the ball, go make a play. And now without Kobe, without Demoy Hodge and guys that are very ball dominant players, now you have one in Tamar Bates. I think there's the opportunity to just have him take the ball and be a playmaker for this team and kind of command the defense. And then when it comes to after that, we saw how Dennis really liked DeAndre Golston. We saw how he liked him in the mid-range, how a big-bodied guard that can get rebounds, but also can play the perimeter. And I think that's what John Tanji gives you, the Colorado State transfer, a guy who was able to do that for the Rams out there. I don't know if he's got the same half-court shot stroke, but, that's to be determined.
Okay. Hey, and Bates, KCK kid, Piper High School. So a couple of with Aiden on the team. That's a couple of Kansas City area guys for the Tigers. Okay, listen, I think in Dennis Gates, I trust. I didn't know what to think of the Tigers going into this, his first season, and thought basically you had a bunch of mid majors to go along with Kobe Brown, and what he proved to me is you can have a mid-major all-star team and beat some Power Fives like Kentucky and others, and he did a great job with it. So I'm pretty stoked about the future of Missouri basketball. All right, guys, we've gone a long way, but I did want to just a sort of a final thought on the baseball situation. Mizzou has a new baseball coach, Carrick Jackson. Is it going to matter unless they pour more money into the program? I'll get both of you guys' thoughts on this. Chris, what do you think?
I know Matt and I talked about this, especially the process when we were trying to figure out, who would be the head coach, who would come to this program. And not that it's a terrible spot, you're in an SEC, you got really good competition, the ability to recruit just based on the name alone. But yeah, it's difficult when I think the number that stuck out to me the most is when you have Tim Corbin at Vanderbilt making $2.4 million a year, and Mizzou as a program poured in $2.5 million. So the disparity there was pretty shocking, especially when you can actually see the numbers physically on paper. But I think they're really taking the steps to understand, hey, if we want to be successful, we have to put money into it. And I think the step was getting a coach and paying him more money, especially with Carrick. A guy that not only just says all the right things, but just kind of looks the part too, was able to come into Memphis for 1 year and basically revitalize a program. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot to like there. And I think that they're going to go that way, especially start putting more into that, into the resources, into the program and what it needs. But, that it has to happen, or else you're going to see the same about 5 years.
Yeah. Look, all you have to do is turn on ESPN this week to see how important SEC baseball is to the SEC programs. No NCAA tournament for the Tigers since 2012. Is a new coach going to make a difference, Matt?
Yes and no. I think if it does well in recruiting and, controls all the things he can control, I think they'll be in a little better spot. Now, this year's team was so confusing because they start the year with a sweep against Tennessee, a team that went to the College World Series. But then, every arm goes down over the course of 2 weekends. And, you're starting freshmen in the SEC series. You're just not going to be very successful at that point. But yeah, it's it's weird that I don't know how much it matters given how far behind they are on so many things compared to the rest of the SEC. Looking at the numbers for fiscal year 2022, Mizzou put 2.5 million in it. They also put, which is the lowest in the SEC, although we don't see Vanderbilt's numbers, but we can assume there. They also put less of all their expenses. They put the lowest percentage of money into baseball. That's going to have to change somewhere along the line. There's got to be some facility upgrades. I know Desiree Reed-Francois talked about we have to actually get the outfield turf in Taylor Stadium now, because right now it's one of those, the infield's artificial turf, the outfield's still natural grass. But just that stadium as a whole, it's not among the top facilities in the SEC. It's in the coldest place in Columbia, Missouri, which is, another disadvantage for you, given that you're trying to attract fans to games in February in Missouri. That's going to be a hard sell. But it's one of those deals where I think he can make a big difference in wins, losses, all that. But he's going to need to have the school behind him.
You just look at softball to see that it can be done, right? That an outdoor sport can work in the spring in cold Columbia, Missouri. You're right. It is one of the colder destinations in the league for sure. All right. Terrific conversation with Chris and Matt from the Columbia Daily Tribune. Thanks a lot, you guys. And let's do it again soon.
Sounds good.
That will do it for today. Thanks to producer Randy Mason for putting together the show, and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Chris Kwiecinski and Matt Stahl of the Columbia Daily Tribune for sharing their insights. Read their stuff and so much more in the Morning Sports Edition, the Star's digital sports page. The best in local and national coverage is available to you at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we deliver the best conversation about sports in and around Kansas City.